long since I filmed a video. I don't even really know where to start. Hello, welcome back. My name is Sarah. It's been a while since I sat down and filmed anything. I really wanted to. I mentioned in my last video that I was like 20 something weeks pregnant. I'm now 38 weeks pregnant and I'm giving birth next week. Having an elective section at 39 weeks. I still don't know what day of the week that's going to be. Don't have my date through yet. So I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm feeling it. This has been a really rough pregnancy physically. I've never carried a child to term before. My son was premature and this is a whole new experience for me, and it's wild. I really wasn't prepared for it to be this difficult, but it is. I wanted to film a reading vlog. That was my plan. My plan was to film a reading vlog about this book, which is Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. And I wanted to see if I could read this book before I give birth. I thought that would be a fun vlog to do, and I think it would, but the answer is no. And also I don't have the energy for reading vlogs at the moment. I don't have the energy to sit down and really like do a sit down video about books. I wanted to do like my best and worst books of last year, but I don't have the brain capacity for that. And I was like, what video can I film? Because I wanted to film like a little update video, and I don't want to just let this channel slide, especially as it's probably going to be a while before I can upload another video after this one, because I'll have a newborn then, which is terrifying. But yeah, I thought I'd sit down and film this one. So this is just going to be a mix of what I'm reading at the moment, my plans going into the next year, and just a bit of a chat really. It's not going to be anything like particularly groundbreaking. I mean, I just do vlogs anyway, but it's not really going to be a vlog style. I included like a montage of like what I've been up to, not much, over the last few weeks at the start of the video. But yeah, this is just going to be me chatting about what I'm reading now, what I plan to read, and hopefully you'll see me again after this video. Depends how I find the newborn stage. I've never done it before. I mentioned that my son was premature, so the first 3 months of his life was spent in hospital, so I've never had to like care for a newborn on my own, and thankfully this pregnancy looks like there's no issues. It's going to be just a like normal, straightforward birth with yeah, just a fairly generic experience of motherhood and the postpartum stage, which is good. But yeah, I've never done it before, so yeah, I don't know when I'll be back after this video, but hopefully it will be soon. So I thought I'd talk about what I'm reading at the moment. I'm listening to The Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle on audio, and it's fine. I've been reading it for a while. I started reading it before Christmas. I read, is it A Study in Scarlet, the first Sherlock Holmes book? I read that at the start of last year and really enjoyed it. I'm not enjoying Hound of the Baskervilles as much. I can see why people like it, because it's more of like a fast-paced, like almost like a horror. We're not really following Sherlock Holmes in this one. We're following Dr. Watson, who is in Devon, I think it's in Devon, at the estate of Sir Henry Baskerville, who has just inherited a property. His uncle died in really mysterious circumstances. People think that there may have been some suspicious circumstances, like he may have been killed, and there's this local like legend that the moors are haunted by this hound, and people are telling him to get away. Someone apparently really has it out for Henry Baskerville, and it's up to Dr. Watson to figure out who that is and sort of what happened to his deceased uncle. And yeah, I like it well enough. I don't really have any strong opinions on it, but I'll keep listening to that one. It's an easy listen. You can just sort of let that wash over you when you're doing other stuff. I'm also reading I Have Some Questions For You by Rebecca Mackay. This is a crime thriller-esque story. We're following a woman called Bodhi who now has a podcast. She just split up from her husband, and she's gone back to this prestigious private high school where she used to be a student to teach podcasting and film studies to the children there. While she was at the school in the 90s, her roommate Thalia was brutally killed, and a man was arrested and charged for that, and he's still in prison. And it's one of those where like the evidence was maybe a bit flimsy, and a lot of people believe that this man didn't kill Thalia, and it's quite heavily influenced, I think, by the Serial podcast. They were like, the book was written not long after that came out, and it's a commentary on true crime, and particularly like the podcasting true crime genre, and just how exploitative it can be. So Bodhi sets an assignment for these high school children in the present day to record a podcast about something to do with Granby, like the area that the school is in, and like school issues, and heavily pushes towards somebody maybe taking on the case of Thalia, and one girl does, and she's just trying to encourage her to do this podcast about Thalia's death, while also being quite conscious that it's all for her benefit and she's maybe exploiting it a little bit, because they were roommates, and she has questions around the whole thing and like how she herself was implicated in this. I find it a little bit on the nose, the way it's talking about violence towards women. I just prefer that to be a bit more subtle, and it's just quite overt, but it is very readable. I'm enjoying it. There's one sentence that particularly stuck with me, and it's when Bodhi is reading about a case where a woman has experienced sexual assault on a film set, and a waitress in the cafe she's in said, oh well, she should have just spoken up if she was that troubled about it. Why is she talking about it now? And the sentence is, it was the one where the witness wasn't considered credible because 6 years earlier she'd accused another man of the same thing, and it was easier to believe she was lying than that lightning loves a scarred tree. And I thought that was a really beautiful sentence, and that's kind of what I mean, where it's a bit on the nose, but that one in particular I thought was really well written. I do think the book as a whole is well written. I think Rebecca Mackay does a good job of talking about teenagers and how teenagers react to like traumatic events, and just looking back and thinking how you would have handled things differently with an adult mind. I'm enjoying it. The other book I've already mentioned is Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I'm about 100 pages into this, and I like it. I don't like it as much as I liked Babel so far, just because I'm reading it quite a bit slower. It's not kind of capturing me quite as much as Babel did. This is set in the 1980s, and we're following a PhD student called Alice Law, who is just so unbelievably desperate to complete her PhD and become a tenured magician. Like, it's not massively clear to me how the magic system works, same as in Babel, but it's fine. Like, I don't really need to know that. And she really wants this tenureship. Is it a tenureship? I'm not sure. She really wants it, but her supervisor, Professor Grimes, is found dead, and Alice is partly responsible for that because she was so overworked that she messed up some equations, and there was a big explosion and Professor Grimes was killed. And now she's really worried about the rest of her PhD, because she really wanted this man, even though she hates his guts, she really wanted him to be the person who oversees her PhD, and she thinks he's the best chance she has of getting this tenureship that she wants so badly, without sort of academia. She feels like she's nothing. She doesn't want to pursue an alternative career. She doesn't want to pursue anything else to do with like the world of being a magician. She just wants to be a professor so badly, and she will do anything to achieve that. And so she follows him into hell with one of her peers called Peter Murdoch, who she kind of has like history with. They don't get on with each other. They're very much in competition, and I think it's gonna turn into an enemies to lovers kind of situation. But at the moment they've just gone into hell and they're traversing hell to try and find Professor Grimes. I'm going to put this down because it's really heavy. It's kind of based on Dante's Inferno, so there's a lot of academic references and just things that maybe would go over the head of most people. There's certainly things that go over my head that I don't like really fully understand, but that's fine. R.F. Kuang is an academic and clearly knows her stuff, and I don't think it impacts the reading experience at all to not fully understand the references in this. I know a lot of people think that it's quite pretentious in the same way that Babel was. I think it is quite pretentious, and I think Alice is a very pretentious, unlikable character, but for me it comes across as more of an act that she's putting on because she really feels like she doesn't belong at Cambridge where she's studying, because she's not white, because she doesn't come from privilege, and like she's really had to work her way into this elite university, whereas others like Peter Murdoch, her rival, she talks about how he just gives off this air of like not having to try, like this world is very normal to him in a way that it isn't to her. And so I think she's adopting this persona of like this pretentious, unlikable person who thinks they're better than everyone else to just try and survive within this environment that feels quite hostile towards her and is so difficult to survive in. I think it's pretentious kind of in the same way that Babel was, that I don't think it's necessarily the author like showing off how much she knows. I think it's just written to sort of illustrate a point. Like for Babel it was like meant to mimic like a very didactic Dickensian text because it's set in the Victorian times, and this is just meant to be, it's meant to immerse you in the world of academia and how like insufferable and pretentious it can be, and I think it does a really good job of doing that. I don't think it's the author just being pretentious for the sake of it. That's not how I interpret it anyway. This is meant to be a critique of academia, so it makes sense that it's written in this like insufferable style, and I think white men write like this all the time in a non-ironic way, and nothing ever gets said about it. So I think a lot of the issue with R.F. Kuang is that she's a woman and she's not white. Like that's why people tend to have issues with her way of writing, and I kind of like that she pushes back at that with her writing and just like makes it more pretentious and more insufferable. I really do feel like obviously like the author's not the person that's like narrating this story, that's a completely separate thing, but I do think you can see how R.F. Kuang's experiences and just like reception to her other works have like informed how she writes this, and yeah, I think like good for her, because I do think she's unfairly criticised for being pretentious and didactic and just seeming like she's better than everyone else, and it never comes across that way to me in her writing. I do think if you didn't like how didactic Babel was, then you're not going to get on with this either, because it's similar in that again it's on the nose. Like this woman is literally going to hell because of how much she wants this tenureship. Like she will do anything for academia, and she'd sooner die than not achieve her goals within academia. I think there is literally a line in this that says academia is hell, It's very literal and, like I said, on the nose. And again, thinking back to Babel, because I think they speak to each other really well, people say that that's really sort of hitting you over the head with like the anti-racist themes in it, and in a way it was, but also like the reviews I read of that, of people being like, oh, she's just like telling us like how bad white people are, this is just a book about how awful every white person is, rather than reading it as it's intended as like a critique of just whiteness and colonialism as a broader concept, rather than talking about individual white people. Like, no one ever said every white person is evil. It was just like the concept of whiteness as a whole is a bad thing. And maybe we do need to be hit over the head sometimes with themes and like what the author's trying to convey. I can see why her writing is on the nose, because people just willfully misinterpret things. Another thing I really liked is like Kwang's sort of like dry humour. Like I said, Alice is responsible kind of for the death of Professor Grimes, because she was like checking all his equations and stuff to make sure everything was correct, so that he didn't do anything untoward to himself, and he ended up blowing himself up because she didn't check the equations properly. But she didn't get punished for that, because PhD students aren't credited with like assisting, so like nobody knew she was in the room at the time, so she just kind of got away with it because of the culture of just expecting students to do things for free and without any credit. And yeah, that's kind of darkly humorous, but I enjoyed that. Excited to keep reading. I'm just taking it slowly because it's such a tome. Like, it's hard to like, it's not the fact that there are loads of pages in the book that bothers me, it's just that it's like physically a very heavy book to read, and I spend most of my time lying down, and it's hard to read lying down, so I've maybe not read as much of that as I would have liked, but I'll keep going, I'll persevere. So that's all I'm reading at the moment, nothing particularly exciting really to update. I do have a bit of a plan going forward for 2026, and that is just with my reading. I'm not setting any goals or anything like that. I just don't have the capacity for that at the moment, and that's fine. The only thing I would really like to do is prioritize books I've already bought. So I'm going on not really a book buying ban, like I will still allow myself to buy books, I think, but I got a bit happy with the like Kobo sale towards the end of last year, and I bought loads of ebooks, more than I could reasonably read, if I'm being honest, and I've just started buying books and reading them at a much slower pace than I'm buying, and I'd like to get out of that habit. So I'm trying not to buy any ebooks and just get like physical ones when I really want them, and so I'm trying to prioritize for 2026 not buying many new books, and also reading some of the physical books that I have on my shelf that I bought in 2025. So I'll show you a stack that I have here of like all the books, the physical books anyway, that I bought in 2025 that I'd like to try and read this year. So that's like my priority TBR for the year. The first one I have is, in fact, I'll talk about the two that I got for Christmas. I got Kiki's Delivery Service from my husband, which I've wanted to read for a while. I love the film. This is by Eiko Kodono, and it's translated from Japanese by Emily Balistreri. This is a beautiful edition, and yeah, it's a children's book. I'm really excited to read. I'll probably try and read this like shortly after the baby's here, just because it'll probably be fairly easy to get on board with. And he also got me the graphic novel version of The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is adapted from the novel by Andrei Klimovsky and Danusia Schable. I'm assuming they translated the original text as well to make it into this graphic novel, and the art is by them as well. That's the kind of art style of it. I read this novel in about 2012, I think, and I loved it. I've been meaning to reread it for a long time, but it's one of those that's quite dense and like difficult to read, so I haven't reread it in a long time. But I'm really excited to read the graphic novel. I didn't even know this was a thing, but yeah, I'm excited for that, and that should be not too difficult to read because I've read it before and it's a graphic novel. I'm not going to tell you what Master and Margarita is about because I don't have brain power for that right now. And I have Childish Literature by Alejandro Zambra, and this is translated from the Spanish by Megan McDowell. Alejandro Zambra is a Chilean author, I think. Ignore the candle wax that is all over this book. I'm just going to read you the blurb of this one. It says, how do we write about the singular experience of parenthood? Written in a state of attachment or under the influence of fatherhood, Childish Literature is an eclectic guide for novice parents, showing how the birth and growth of a child changes not only the present and the future, but also reshapes our perceptions of the past. Shifting from moving dispatches from his son's first year of existence, to a treatise on football sadness, to a psychedelic narrative where a man tries mid-magic mushroom trip to relearn the subtle art of crawling, this latest work from Alejandro Zambra shows how children shield adults from despondency, self-absorption, and the tyrannies of chronological time. I think that sounds really interesting, but maybe not one to read in the trenches of the newborn phase. So I will get to it, just not sure when. And I have Catland by Catherine Hughes. This was a complete cover buy for me. I think the cover's really gorgeous, and I love cats. It's a history on how cats sort of came to occupy the role they have within our culture and like different cultures, and just how they moved from like being just considered pests to becoming domesticated animals that are like worshipped in some cultures. And it sounds really interesting, and I don't think it will be too difficult of a non-fiction to read, so excited for that one. I have A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland. I originally bought this one because it's set in Wales, and there's not a lot of books like that make it to mainstream publishing outside of Wales that are set in Wales. I'm Welsh, so it was really interesting to read this. It's set in the late 1980s in a small valley town in Wales, and it's about the relationship of two men in the midst of like Section 28 and like the AIDS crisis and just rampant homophobia of that era. And yeah, I'm excited to read that one. I'm excited to read them all. Why do I keep saying that? But this is one I'm really sad I haven't got to sooner because I was so excited. I pre-ordered this one and then never read it when it actually came out, so oops. Then I have Fascist Yoga by Stuart Home, another one that I bought as soon as it came out. This is published by Pluto Press, and it's just talking about like grifters and white supremacists within the world of yoga, and I think just the general wellness industry. I thought this sounded really interesting. I trust Pluto Press, but it gets really bad reviews on Goodreads, which is why I haven't picked it up sooner. So yeah, I'm hoping I do enjoy this, but we'll see. It seems like it would be a fairly like quick read because it's quite small. It's like essay styles, and it's something I'm really interested in, like the wellness industry and yoga. Like it's something I play like an active role in, but like I get it's a really problematic industry as well, so I am looking forward to seeing what Stuart Home has to say about that. Then finally I have two seasonal reads. One is Catch the Rabbit by Lana Bastashich, I think. I'm sorry if I butchered that. This is about two women who go on a road trip from Dublin to Bosnia, and it's two friends who haven't spoken for a long time. They grew up in Croatia, I think, during the war of the 90s, and it just sounds really interesting. I think the author wrote this originally in Serbo-Croat and translated it herself, so yeah, I'm excited to read that. But it does seem more of a summer book because it's like a a road trip. I don't know if it's just because it has an Olivia Sudich quote on the front, but I'm getting like Asylum Road vibes from this. I really, really love that book, so can't wait to read that one in the summer. And then finally I have Moving Land in November by Tove Jansson. I don't think the translator is listed on here, you know. It's a beautiful book. It's a shame. Oh no, it's translated by Kingsley Hart. I am really sad I didn't get to read this in 2025. I just ran out of time, and I could read it any time of year, but I'd really like to read it in November. I just love the movements, they're so cute, and the stories are so like cozy. So I'll read that towards the end of this year. The only other thing I'd like to prioritize is I'd like to do like a big chunky classic like Anna Karenina or something like that. I haven't decided which one, and just read it like really slowly over the course of a year and do like a seasonal reading vlog, so like reading through the seasons. So maybe I'll get to that, maybe I won't, but that's the reading goals, and that's all I've really got to chat about this time. Next time you see me I will hopefully have a baby, and will hopefully be surviving. I'm absolutely exhausted after filming that video. My back is killing me from just sitting up, and yeah, I'm looking forward to just going and lying in a dark room and playing Dreamlight Valley. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your reading plans for 2026. If you've read any of these books, let me know, and I will catch you in another video. Bye.